All right, guys, thanks so much. This is our third presentation, our third webinar in a three-part series on growth masterclass, and it's all about standing out in 2020. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. It has been super crazy for all of us. Lots of challenging times, both in the present, but also in the future. We want to help you get through those challenging times, especially as we start to ramp up in our practices again. One of the ways that we can be most supportive is by doing these types of webinars and giving you guys information and content direction on how you can, again, not only get through these times, but also when we come out of this, which I believe is going to be very, very soon, really be poised for substantial growth. Lucas, can you do next slide, please? Just really quickly, many of you guys know me. I've been in practice for 26 years. We've got 4 divisions of our company: chiropractic rehab practices, we've got a wellness company, we've got a clinical research institute, and we've got a technology and consulting company. And it's been quite an interesting ride. And the best thing about the ride is the awesome people that I get to work with, like my partner in crime here, Lucas. And let's do Lucas's introduction. So Lucas is a young, bright, incredibly talented marketer. He came to our practice after having significant experience in large healthcare companies. He went to the University of Wisconsin. People don't know this, but he did play quarterback. So maybe we'll see some footage at some point. But he is our director of business development, and he's going to show you some statistics today on what he did for us on the digital side of marketing. He's an expert salesperson. He can walk into any physician office and build rapport and establish a sales pipeline. But what he's done on the digital side has been truly, truly remarkable. And he's grown our digital presence larger than I would have ever thought possible, and in a very short period of time. So we're literally just going to be sharing these secrets with you today. And then next slide. All right, now I get to turn it over to Lucas.
Cool, thank you. And first of all, it's really cool for me to see a lot of you guys in the audience, so to speak, who have been here for the previous master classes. It shows us that what we're doing is delivering some value to you guys, and that's obviously very important to us. I think the main take-home message after everything we talked about today is that there's nothing special about what we did. It was just a series of tasks, a series of processes that we identified and we put in place, and the results came pretty much linearly until they picked up, and then it was exponential growth from there. And another thing is we'll talk about the first item here, shifting the paradigm. Now, I also want to start by saying I come from a sales background, like Dr. J said, going into practices, doctors' practices, attorneys, gyms, you name it, and trying to promote them to refer to me. So the frustration of having other people kind of control my growth, although I wasn't directly involved, was something that was kind of dear to my heart. And I think a main motivator as to how we came up with all of these processes and these strategies. So today we'll talk about shifting the paradigm, kind of what I was just talking about, going from a sales mentality to a marketing mentality, going from a non-scalable to a scalable format. We'll first talk about why your brand matters. Now, if you missed, the last masterclass was entirely dedicated to branding, and we have a branding guide that's also free and available. You can go to our blog and you can find all of these resources are free and they're accessible to you guys. We'll also talk about understanding the digital landscape. There's millions of avenues that you can go, and how do you spend your time is very important. You guys are doctors first, you're not digital marketers. And it's really a cost-benefit analysis for you. How much time can you spend on this and still get a significant return versus spending time on anything else that could be giving you a return as well. So on that note, we'll talk about the top avenues for digital success, and then we'll give you all the tools that you need to implement this in your practice. So let's go ahead and get started. Why does digital marketing matter? So from a defensive standpoint, digital marketing matters because our consumers care about it. In fact, if you were part of our first masterclass where we talked about our growth guide, which again is available for you guys on our website, we talk about how the first section is digital marketing. And we talk about how 97% of consumers said they would not do business with a company whose website or social media was not up to date. And why does this matter, right? A, you don't want to lose on these 97% of people. But what would it look like if you use this data to your advantage? What is that data really telling us? If 97% of them would not do business with us, that means that that's something that's very important to them and that we can leverage and we can, in a positive way, manipulate to our advantage. So this is what we did here at our 5 practices in the DC area. From 2017 to 2018, you can see, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not, but you see that we had 289 new patients that came to us from any online platform. And we use Salesforce to track everything, and we name it website. So you see here, there were 3 categories essentially. Insurance website, which were people who randomly found us on, say, Care First website or Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever, Aetna, you name it. Then there's SSR website. Our company used to be called Sport and Spine Rehab, and actually, interesting enough, this growth happened as we changed our name. Okay, so we're really going to talk about SEO to the point where we changed what people were searching, and we still were able to grow through that by just following these easy steps we're going to give you guys. So you notice we essentially quadrupled this number in 1 year. And just to point out here, you see, we kind of segmented the data so we could get a better understanding, right? Before we only had insurance websites and our own website and then other. So we decided it was very important for us to know, where are these patients coming from? And that's a big take-home message for you guys as well. And you don't have to be a Google Analytics expert to figure this out. It can even be as subjective as just asking and keeping track of everyone who comes into your clinic. How did they find you? Oh, I found you online. Okay, well, did you Google us? Did you see us on Instagram? Did you see our email? Because online is just too broad, and it's not going to give you data that you can actually implement and execute on. So again, you notice here, obviously, the gross number of patients quadruple, which is phenomenal. We're talking about 1,200 new people coming into our practice versus the 289. But also you see some categories really emerging, right? So Google, meaning organic searches, we don't do any Google AdWords whatsoever, quickly became over half of this total number. Now, before here, we had the SSR website category, but we didn't really know where they were coming from. It was just kind of a general thing. So now we know that about half of our new patients were just Googling related key terms, or maybe even Googling our brand name, assuming that we did a really good job at branding, which in the beginning probably wasn't the case, because again, we were rebranding. So it really goes to show how much power SEO has. And then you see a massive category here, really 1/3 of all of our new patients then coming from our Instagram at the time. So really, from a matter of 1 year, we went from having 0 patients from this avenue to having 312 new ones, right? Almost 10 new patients a month coming from this one thing that we weren't even doing at all before. And I think that's also a big take-home message from our discussion today, is that it doesn't have to be Instagram, it doesn't have to be email, it doesn't have to be anything, although you see email generated 138 new patients for us. But it has to be the thing that you can commit to and you can consistently execute on. And we're going to give you the tools to do that. Oops. Okay, there. So if you did our digital readiness questionnaires, I meant to put a screenshot of the actual questionnaire here, but I did put the link. So if you guys want to check it out, just click the link and it's going to pull it up for you right away. So we give you essentially 5 rankings. And again, to Dr. J's point, I'm a big like 80s hair metal kind of guy. So I went with Rockstar, Rising Star, Roadie. These 3 are categories of most of the people who we work with and get to a place where they're actually growing their practice scalably and exponentially. They would be in one of these 3 groups. Just fair warning, not very many people get a Rockstar rating. You have to have a lot of things going well for you. But really, Rising Star and Roadie are where you want to be. So your question might be, okay, either I didn't do the worksheet, so I don't know where I belong, or, okay, I'm not quite there yet, and I belong in one of these 2 groups here. The good news is that through this masterclass, we're going to give you all the tools that you need to level up. And also these resources are available for free, where you can go back, refer back to them, study them, email us your feedback. We'll help you walk through the whole process if you need. So we'll answer these 3 top questions. And the first one is, why is this innovative or the so-called new way of acquiring patients better than what we're used to, right? Better than what I was used to before we started doing this. And what makes a chiropractic practice successful in the digital realm specifically, right? We're not concerned with the growth of Amazon or Target or whatever. We're concerned about our industry. What do we need to do? Who are the people who are successful in this realm? What things did they do, and how can we replicate that in our businesses? And lastly, well, that kind of addresses that. Lastly is, how do I implement these steps into my own practice? And we'll give you a list of things that each staff member needs to do to make sure that this gets executed on. So we refer to it as the old way. Dr. J and I had some conversation about that. I think this is better referred to as the brick and mortar way rather than the old way, because truth be told, and maybe Dr. J can comment on this, I mean, our core business here, Kaizo Health, was successful for 25 plus years before we implemented any of this. So it's not like the so-called old way or the brick and mortar way is wrong. It's not wrong. We're just proposing a more scalable way to do things.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important, because diversity of new patient streams, new ways that new patients can find you is critically important. And you know, the best compliment we can get is an internal referral, a referral from one of our existing patients or from a provider. But I think when it comes to our ability to really maximize our return on effort, not just our return on investment, but our return on effort, I think what we're seeing is that while the old way is still important, we want to deliver amazing experiences for our patients, and we want to get internal referrals. In order to get that return on effort, incorporating digital strategies into our overall strategy has been very, very, very productive for us. By the way, just a side note, guys, because I know some of you may not be able to find the score on the digital readiness survey. It's on the lower right-hand portion of page 2. Lucas created it so that it would automatically score for you. So if you can't find it, that's where it is.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. And you should be able to open that PDF on any free PDF reader. You don't need to have Acrobat or anything like that. You can probably, even on your browser, you can open it. So to Dr. J's point, there's nothing wrong with the way we've done business. Again, like my first few jobs, my first few years in the industry, it was doing exactly that. It was going to talk to physicians, connecting with them, talking to attorneys, seeing, you know, how we can align our practices, our brands, etc. And it got to a point where it was really about the return on my effort investment, right? So if in 6 hours I can get in front of 12 accounts, 12 partner providers, how much can I do in 6 hours when I have these other avenues available to us? And what kinds of patients are you generating from it too, which is also an important question that we talk about a lot here. So just to clarify, nothing wrong with the brick and mortar way. The first barrier that you'll face is that it's kind of what we were talking about. You're not in control, right? So you can indirectly, or you can directly tell a provider or a partner, an attorney that refers to you, or a primary care provider that you work closely with, or the gym owner next door, the CrossFit guy, doesn't matter. You can tell them about your services and they can come and try it maybe, and then they can talk to other people about it. But at the end of the day, you have very limited amount of interactions that you can have actually talking and promoting. And even when you do have those conversations, unless they're coming into your practice, you're really just telling them about it. And of course, you're going to tell them that your adjustments are the best and your soft tissue is the best and you can fix them from head to toe. But what really the biggest barrier here is that you're kind of depending on other people to drive this growth. And not to say that it's impossible. To Dr. J's point, a lot of us have built incredibly successful practices just by word of mouth of delivering remarkable experiences time in and time out. And it's important to say, guys, that no matter how much traction your digital strategy gains, if when they're coming into your practice, they're not having remarkable experiences, it's actually just going to implode even faster, because again, they're going to go online and talk about it, say, you know, they sold me on something that wasn't true. So that's the number one problem, is you're not fully in control. You're not looking, there's no data that you can use to leverage your own growth when your business is growing by word of mouth. So this really leads to the second problem, right? Is you're unable to scale, and you're relying on essentially community partners to generate generate new patients for your practice, but there's little that you can do in the sense of, okay, if I dedicate more effort in this thing, or if I allocate more of my budget into this thing, it's going to give me a predictable and accurate growth scale, so to speak. So those are really the problems that we're trying to address here. So what would it look like if you're in control, not if, when you're in control of your growth? It's the new way, the innovative way. And again, it all comes down to remarkable experiences in your clinic. But let's say a new patient prospect encounters and connects with your brand online. Again, it's very powerful, the difference between me telling you about the services that we do versus me showing you. And that's one of the biggest take-home messages through this, is that the best way for people to connect with your brand, and again, we go over this ad nauseum in the first two masterclasses, especially the first one, the growth guide, is by generating video content about the services that we provide. Video that we found to be super, super impactful and that gain a lot of traction were literally just 10 to 15 seconds of very up close and personal, just footage of the actual treatment itself. So one way that you can go about that is finding, for instance, one patient, either could be a friend or a family member or whatever, or just someone who's cool with you, filming them and getting content that way. And then you just have one of your assistants come in and film the treatments in a very kind of dynamic style. And again, we talk about specifics of this in the very first masterclass, so make sure you go back and check that out. So again, you're creating content that speaks to your audience. They're going to see this content, they're going to consume it, and then they're going to share it and disseminate it to all of their networks. So most of us have a couple of hundred to a couple of thousand friends on Facebook, maybe 1 to 2 to 1,000 followers on Instagram, so be it. But it's essentially free marketing for you, because they're just sharing something that speaks to them, that they connect with, and that's cool, has kind of a cool appeal. And that's really the beauty of our profession. Everyone who's come in contact with it, I shouldn't say everyone, but most people who come in contact with it will swear by it and find it to be something that actually elevates them. So that's something that we play on a lot too in our marketing strategies, is what kind of content do we need to push out there that's going to speak to people in a way that their status is elevated by coming in contact with our brand. So that's step number 2. And then step number 3 is the new prospect's going to find your brand online. Again, they'll connect with your brand because it speaks to them, the reason why your brand exists. And again, every time I say brand, you should think about the last masterclass where we really walked through what makes a powerful brand in chiropractic and how you should communicate your brand to your audience. But the idea here is that it's incredibly scalable when you're pushing out one piece of content that takes you a few minutes to create, takes little to no editing, and all of a sudden people are sharing it amongst themselves, and those people are sharing it too. Next thing you know, you've become a staple in your community, and that's pretty much what's happened to our practice here in the DC area. So of course, that all sounds good, but how does it actually work? I don't have to tell you guys that there's a million different avenues for digital marketing and to have a presence in the digital realm. And every person you talk to, they'll tell you that X, Y, and Z is the most important thing for you to do. So what we're going to try to do here is we'll talk about these different ones, and we'll highlight which types of practices probably identify, or not identify with, but will most likely have the most success pursuing one of these avenues. So for instance, if you're tending to a younger population or a sports-based population, obviously social media is the way you want to go. If you're dealing with more baby boomers or Gen Xers, you really want to focus on email marketing, on reviews, on community. And here at the bottom, you can see paid advertising. That's, again, something you have to be in touch with your brand to be able to generate. So let's try to start breaking this down a little bit. Luckily for us, these are not all part of just one big jar of things that give you a lot of anxiety, right? They're actually split into, you can kind of bundle them up and compartmentalize each one of these avenues here. So the way we like to think about it is, when it comes to the digital realm, there's a human factor, and then there is a technical factor. So for instance, Google finding you when someone searches for chiropractor Nova Scotia has nothing to do with how much people like you or anything like that. It has to do with how well you're playing the bots of Google to read your stuff and deem it to be relevant to show it up. And that's very, very important, because there's a lot of people who have beautiful websites, consumer facing. They're very easy to consume. They have lots of value, but the websites are not built correctly, and they're not showing up on search results. And in fact, a lot of website designers don't have that conversation with you because it's a lot harder to get a website to rank high on a search than it is to make a website look good. So just keep that in mind when you're having these conversations as well. So the top 5, right? We broke it down into 8. So the top 5 are what we perceive as outward brand imaging, so to speak. So this is how your audience, your consumers, are really perceiving and consuming and seeing your brand, right? They see your social media posts, they see your emails. Let's talk a little bit about these so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So we'll start with email marketing. Email marketing refers to newsletters. You'll notice on the worksheet, we ask a lot about what frequency are you sending this kind of stuff out? And of course, that is worth a different amount of points. So email marketing refers to newsletters or any other kind of communication that you do consistently, and ideally in a way that's that your audience can expect it. So for instance, ours go out every Thursday at noon. So that's something that our audience knows. Every Thursday, they'll have something from our company. You'll notice a lot of our Kaizennovate emails go out on Tuesday. So you can do all kinds of research to see what is the best time to send it. Even some emailing softwares will tell you what the best time to send is, like MailChimp will tell you based on whatever algorithm they have. So just something to keep in mind. Social media is kind of self-explanatory: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, so on and so forth, TikTok. I mean, if you really want to talk about social media, there's anything where people interact is a social media. So if you know a gamer in your life, even Discord is considered a social media, for instance. Community refers to Yelp and Google My Business and other places where people can leave a review and people can engage and kind of see pictures of your practice and kind of learn a little bit more about that, specifically as it pertains to other people's experience in your practice, right? So when you go to someone's Google My Business page, so if you just go and you Google, I don't know, Houston Chiropractic, and Houston Chiropractic pops up, it will have their address, their phone number, etc., but then the reviews. And the reviews, if there's one take-home message here, the reviews are the single most important thing that you can do to fuel your SEO, which are these bottom 3 here. So really, we'll talk a little bit about this, about implementing, because it's something I know Dr. J is tired of talking about. We talk a lot about this with our team and the importance of it. And as you notice from the slide where I showed you the pie chart of our results, you notice Google is half of that, and that is vastly driven by reviews. Recruitment sites refer to things like Indeed and Glassdoor, etc. It's very important that you have your business listed on there as well. Again, when people are searching for things, Google in a split second is cross-checking all of these different data points to make sure that all of your information matches. The more it matches, the more accurate it is, the more credible Google perceives you to be. And when I say Google, I'm saying Google, Yahoo, Bing, you name it, just the search engine itself. Google just happens to be the best one and the most utilized one. All the other ones kind of try to copy their algorithm. But if you master Google, you have mastered all the other ones as well. So that's recruitment sites, something people often oversee, and you should not. So even if you need to go do a Google search for top recruitment sites, go on there and make sure your business is listed on there. And again, make sure your information is absolutely correct on all of them. So if you have multiple locations, and this kind of ties into the directory listings here, the other blue bubble, aside from paid advertising, these are really the things that Google is looking at. So if you have different locations, make sure that either each one of them has its own Google My Business page with information that is matching. So for instance, for our core business, Kaizo Health, we have Kaizo Health Fairfax, Kaizo Health Rockville. It's not just one thing, Kaizo Health, because the phone numbers have to match, the addresses have to match, so on and so forth. So it's a little bit more legwork if you have multiple locations, but definitely worth the time investment. Now, this is a golden nugget here. The directory listing is the second most important thing after the reviews when it comes to SEO. And it's something that I would say with confidence, 99% of people who host their own websites or maybe just had a website built out for them and are thinking about SEO stuff, they do not think about that, especially because there's very few listing directories or directory listings that are obvious, like yellow pages, white pages, etc. But Google actually pulls from about 250 of them. So again, think about this. Google casts this wide net and you only come back with 2 hits out of 250. And this other guy comes back with 190 hits. Who is Google going to show first? And this is very important. And you can, on your own, and actually this is actually not cool because a lot of these directories you have to pay to edit. I'd say about half of them. So don't be disheartened because you can do half of them yourself, which is already way more than anyone else will do. But the good news is that it is really, really cost effective to pay a company to actually update all of those for you. I think for us, it costs something like $30 per location for 200 plus listings. One-time fee, right? So, I mean, that's the best $30 you ever spend in your life. So look into that. And even if you don't have $30 to do something like that, do what you can. Google directories, chiropractic directories, things like healthcare, vitals, WebMD, whatever other healthcare listing website, make sure you're there and make sure your information is accurate, okay? Text messaging, we refer to any system like Zingit or whatever where you can do campaigns and you can also contact them directly. I would consider this to be a little bit more advanced. There's a lot of other things that you can do for free. That's another point too. Texting, mass texting like that is typically not free. So there's a lot of things that you can do for free. And we're big, big promoters of generating business organically rather than paying for it. I did skip paid advertising here, kind of by accident, but the paid advertising, the reason it's under SEO is because some of the most effective paid advertising strategies are actually not conversion strategies. They're really traffic strategies to drive a certain type of traffic to your website. This is something we talk a lot about with other clients that we work with, or even within our own practice. What kind of content can we create to drive this type of traffic? Because again, say Facebook ads, for instance, and we'll have a masterclass on just Facebook ads later on because it's way too much to talk about here. But Facebook ads has this thing called a pixel, which learns what kinds of people interact with your content, and your campaigns become more and more effective and less costly. So they become more cost effective as you go on. Just to close out, the content library is something a lot of people don't think about. Is they'll create content, say like a blog, and then they make a video for their blog, which you should be doing, or a newsletter, and they send out a video with the newsletter. One thing that people don't really think about is repurposing all of this content. So when you write so for instance, last week, we wrote a blog, that was the week before, we wrote a blog on proper deceleration patterns for athletes. One of our coaches wrote up the blog and we made a little video. So there you go. You spent 6 hours writing this blog, putting it up on your website, and then what happens, right? It's just there. Next week, you got to write another one, and no one has time for that. So one thing that we've really focused on is to create content libraries. So for instance, the copy, the text that goes in this blog gets saved up on the cloud. We use Microsoft Office 365, so that all gets saved up there on OneDrive. But most importantly, your videos should be indexed on a platform like YouTube is the first one that comes to mind because it's free, everyone uses it, and it ties directly back to your website. Now, here's another nugget, is that one of the biggest SEO drivers is something called cross-linking, meaning on your page, does it have links that point out of your website, back to your website? Because that shows Google you're not just a kind of a one-off entity, right? They want pages that are playing well in this digital playground, so to speak. So it's really effective, for instance, for you to have, instead of just embedding the video on your page, you upload it on YouTube, and then you embed the YouTube link on your blog, for instance, and on your newsletter. And then you take that same video, you make a social post that you're gonna push out on 3 or 4, 5, 6, 10 platforms. Use the same copy, maybe minor modifications, because one thing that we really preach is also content should be native to its platform. But that's not to say that you have to rewrite things, just minor things. Like for instance, Facebook is more copy heavy, while Instagram is square, and so on and so forth. And again, we talk a lot about this in previous masterclasses and in upcoming ones as well. So index everything, keep track of everything, create playlists on YouTube. That way, even if a year from now you want to repost the same exact blog, you just use that link. Guess what? That link is now linked to 2 pages. So that even helps you more. It has more SEO pull, so on and so forth. So all of this feeds into each other or into itself. Now let's talk about the brand specifically, right? Those 5 bubbles that we talked about. And just say one more time, the branding guide is free. It's available. Go on our website and get it, because it's probably the thing you should do first before even looking into any of this other stuff. Because if you don't know what your brand is, it'll be very hard for you to effectively communicate it out there in a way that doesn't look fragmented and in a way that ultimately harms people's image of your practice and of your non-existing brand in this case. So your brand is what the public sees, how the public consumes your practice, the digital representation of your team and your values. And again, the point of the brand online is really to create and sustain clinical credibility. Why does your practice exist? What kind of work do you do? Are you legit? Show me, right? And that's one of the biggest takeaways from this masterclass. I know I've said that about like 10 things already, but show people. Don't be afraid to show people. Dr. J might remember Marcus Sheridan, right? He's one of the, I think this country's top video content, marketing content strategists. I mean, this guy really knows his stuff. And it was about 2 years ago, I was at one of his presentations and he said something that truly is a great influencer in the work that we do, which is to just tear down the walls, show people. A lot of us are afraid that we're gonna show the secret sauce, right? And then if we show people exactly how we do what we do, someone else is gonna come and copy us. But the truth is, especially in our industry, adjustments kind of look the same to the untrained eye anyway, right? Soft tissue kind of looks the same. It's not like anyone's gonna go and copy your scraping technique or your high velocity adjustment technique. So you have to really just show people what you're doing, show that it's safe, especially there is still a stigma. And a lot of the patients that we generate online are first-time chiropractic patients. They're like, wow, I saw your video and it looked kind of scary, but it also looked like there was such relief. Or they saw and they're like, wow, I need that. So you have to show them. And that ties back to the first thing we talked about, which is the best kind of video content you can put out is think of the Instagram story format, which is very quick. I mean, 5 seconds, 6 seconds of just the actual relief being delivered to the patient, not the end result, right? Not like a testimonial of someone saying, oh yeah, that was super great. Now I feel way better. Because obviously you're going to post that and you want them to say that. What you have to show them is the actual process of achieving that. So now let's talk a little bit about the SEO and the digital roots. I think we went a little bit into this when I was kind of first explaining the overall big picture. But just to kind of reiterate, guys, this is really what fuels your brand. So your brand is what people see, but really what fuels it and what allows your brand to even be found in the first place are these 3 things. Is your business listed? Does it have accurate information everywhere? Do you have smart paid advertising campaigns that are not just driving traffic, but driving the right kind of traffic? Because again, if someone's coming to if you have thousands of people coming to your page, but your page loads and they're like, this is not what I need, and they click out, you're literally hurting yourself, right? So if you're sending the wrong kind of traffic to your website, you're actually hurting your SEO and you're hurting your ability to show up in search results. So very, very important that you're finding the right people and that you're using the technology and the data available to you to do so. And even without understanding of Google Analytics, et cetera, most software that you use for mass communication, say MailChimp or anything like that, will tell you kind of a demographic breakdown of your audience, and also your EMRs will tell you, right? They'll tell you how old people are, and you can segment your message that way. And then the recruitment sites is one that's also often overlooked, but very important for your SEO. So just a quick visual representation of what we mean here. It's really, again, kind of corny, but it's a tree, right? The leaves are what people see, but the roots are the things that sustain everything. And again, back to my point on websites that are beautiful but ineffective. think about it that way. You don't want your digital efforts to be beautiful and to look awesome, but to fall on deaf ears. And that's one of the biggest pieces of some of the most common questions or pieces of feedback that we get from our clients that we help with all of this is, I've been doing this for so long and nothing happens. There's no traction. It's a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. And trust me, it's not a fight. It's not a battle with Google. Google wants you to do well, right? You have to think about that. Facebook wants you to do well. Instagram wants you to do well. It's about partnership and about understanding what these platforms need from you and what you need to give them in order for them to play nice with you, so to speak. So if you've been paying attention, you're probably thinking like, wow, but something's missing, right? This guy's talking about like listings and social media and email newsletters. What brings all of this together? So we have here the branding piece that everyone sees, and you have the things that fuel that. But the thing that really comes in the middle is your website, or in the case of some of you guys who have had custom apps developed by us, it's essentially the same purpose, right? These are the platforms where people are coming, they're essentially the information hubs. So everything from a review to social media to email to text and to your index libraries, they're all pointing to the same place, right? And we talked about cross-linking and all of that. They're pointing to your website. The same way with a mobile app is the exact same thing. They're pointing to this one place where people can come and easily consume your brand. They can come and find the information that they need, and where all of your information is centralized and organized and easy to consume. So you're probably wondering like, wow, that is a whole lot to talk about. How do I go about implementing this in my own practice? So let's talk about the brand first. How do you create this image and this how do you portray the vision that you have for your brand and for your content? Who needs to do what, and how in the world are you going to do this while seeing 100, maybe even 200 people a week, right? Someone's got to help you out. So we put this together kind of based on a typical office, but we really don't want you to look at this and say, oh, I don't have a clinical CA, so I can't do this, okay? Like there's always a way to make things work around, and you will see. So the social media content, we talked about what works, right? Is showing them the actual clinical treatments, showing them patients actually experiencing you, experiencing your brand. So who needs to be in charge of that? And social media is really a match between a clinical member of your team and more of an administrative front desk type person. Again, that person is going to hold the camera, obviously, but it's also good to have one of your CAs who plays a clinical role, or even yourself if you're a solo practitioner, to be thinking, what content does my audience want to consume, right? So again, and just to be very specific here, guys, if your target audience, if you're a new chiro and your target audience are people between 20 and 40 years old, you probably want to be talking about hip pain, knee pain, all the way to ankles and maybe tightness of the back, of the neck, etc. But think about the word usage there, right? Versus if your population is a little bit older, you're really talking about neck pain, back pain, chronic issues that they've dealt their entire lives. And so you have to reverse engineer your content creation, right? It's not, oh, I'm going to create this video of me cracking someone's neck and then send it out and see who likes that. It's the opposite. Is you say, okay, I know that 80% of my patients come in here with cervical conditions. So I know that they would most likely respond to this kind of treatment. So then you can film 4 or 5 patients getting their necks adjusted. You compile all these videos. You can use free apps like Video Shop. It will take you 30 seconds to do that. And then send in your newsletter. Say, hey, top 3 tips for relieving neck pain during the quarantine. We literally just did that last week for our core business here. But those are super effective because people, they're going to see the treatment, then they're going to be reminded of the relief that they experience with that treatment. And then they'll click and they'll come and consume the rest of your stuff. So actually, in just me giving this example, we tapped into these 3, right? The content libraries, the email marketing, and the social media, because like I said, you film the content itself for social media, knowing that this is a clinical condition that your audience is likely to be interested in. You're going to upload that to your content library on YouTube. And again, you can make the library private to you, the bots of Google and of YouTube, who is owned by Google, they know that your video is there. It doesn't matter if the public can see it or not. Obviously, if the public's seen and interacting with it, that's even better. But if it's something that you want to just keep to yourself, just keep it unlisted on your page. It doesn't really make a difference. And then you repurpose that content for email marketing. So there you have one video of 4 patients getting 1 neck adjustment. So it's a 10-second video total, 2 seconds per patient or something like that. And then you're repurposing that video across multiple platforms that will reach thousands of people. And this whole process really took you no more than an hour. If you have no knowledge of how to do these things, it'll take you an hour. If you know what you're doing, it'll take you 15 minutes. So again, scalable and applicable to different audiences and across age groups and all that. So the text messaging is more of like a management thing. So if you have like an office manager or again, a front desk person who's very, I think, in touch with your patient population, you can create mass campaigns. But again, these will typically take some kind of software to do that. Again, we've used Zing It in our practice before. I know that there's other, Jay, you might know some other service providers, but it's something worth looking into. Text messages are opened, I think, 82% of the time, while emails for our industry of chiropractic and physical therapy, the average, I think, is 12%. We do better than that, but you can see the difference. Regardless, you're never going to get an 82% open rate on an email. So it's definitely worth thinking about if you do have a little room in your budget and you want to really get up close and personal with your patients. Text messaging is something we've had a lot of success with. And then the most important thing of all is the reviews, like we talked about. Everything else is great, but really what's driving people's ability to find you are your reviews online. And I mean, if you're really curious, Google this, what is the impact of Google reviews on my SEO? And you will see that the reviews alone are over 30% of your SEO. And if you think about all the millions of factors that go into SEO, billions probably, just having people leave you a review is pretty simple, right? You don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be as smart as John McNulty, the guy who develops our apps and all that. Like, you just ask him, how did you enjoy this? And I know, actually, I'll pass this on to Dr. J now, because I know he's kind of smirking over there. He's had so many conversations with our team about this that I'll let you talk about this.
So the first thing that I want to say about this is that you really do need to have a process when it comes to getting reviews, a written process that everybody on the team understands. And for us, it's also about being authentically curious. And the questions that we like to ask our patients are, on a percentage of improvement, how much better are you doing since you started care? For us, there's a trigger. If it's 80% or better, we're starting to process the fact that they would be willing to give us a review. The second question after that is, you've been to other healthcare providers in the past. How do we compare? Now, I mean, I was always asking that question when I was seeing patients every day, because I was truly curious, like, how are we doing? How is your total experience doing compared to any other healthcare provider that you've ever seen? And invariably, we would get some really positive feedback. If we're 80% or more improved, if we're doing better from a service and an outcomes perspective than other healthcare providers that they've ever experienced, it becomes very easy to say to them, would you be willing to leave us a review? Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, of course. Now, part of this is currently, we've also got it embedded in our own app, so it becomes even easier for them to do. But being curious about their experience and identifying those patients that would be most likely to give a review is really important. And again, it's windy here, sorry. Again, having a process that's written out so that you know who's going to do it, when they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it is critically important for execution.
Yes, it is. And we've learned the hard way, and then we reap the benefits of those growing pains. And we continue to do so to this day. I mean, even today, during this coronavirus pandemic, we have patients every day walking into our clinic saying that they Googled us, right? And that's phenomenal. And another piece of advice, if you have some time in your hands, if things are a little bit slower in your clinic, now is really the time to make sure that all this stuff is bulletproof. Because in 2 or 3 weeks, God willing, everything opens up again. People are going to be Googling this stuff, right? Like, I need a chiropractor in Potomac, Maryland. I need to find someone today, and you want to be the person that pops first, okay? So just to summarize everything, guys, so digital readiness means first and foremost, you understand your digital footprint, and you understand the available growth avenues. You understand what's available for you to leverage out there. And that really ties back to these 8 things that we talk about here, and essentially having them all pointing to your hub, which is your essentially your conversion hub, which is your website and your mobile practice app as well. Secondly is the importance of your brand and leveraging your brand by consistently delivering content that you can repurpose across platforms. Don't work harder, work smarter. Everything that you film, that you create, save it, index it, organize it. Make sure that 3 years from now, when you're like, oh, I had that one video with this one guy who was 6'10" or something. I need to find that video because I'm going to be working with the basketball team. You're able to find it on the spot. You don't spend 3 hours clicking around or saying, oh, that was on my old phone. It isn't. Index everything, be organized. And I think Jay's laughing because I recently lost a video that we need to find. But the thousands of other videos are indexed. So don't be me, okay? Don't spend hours looking for content that you failed to organize. And thirdly is maximize your SEO by implementing a Google review process. That is the #1 easy win you can do. If you do nothing else, that's the first thing that you should be doing. So are there any questions? And we'll take the questions. We'll leave the homework here for you guys to kind of think about and process. No pun intended, right? Identify 2 processes to increase your Google reviews. Get your practice listed in 5 local directories. Now, hint, Vitals, WebMD, White Pages, so on and so forth. You can easily find Health Grades. Health Grades used to be the biggest one until this year, I believe, and I think Vitals is the biggest one because they've pumped so much money into Google AdWords. But I think there's research on this, but Health Grades I think is still the most trusted one. So make sure your practice is on there, and then post on social for at least once a month once a week for the next month. And again, don't over question it. Don't overcomplicate it. Social means whatever is most natural to you, whatever you have the most comfort with. Let's start with that. And then we move from that. Okay. You don't need to start an Instagram or Twitter account just because we mentioned it here. If you have a Facebook page where 40% of your patients follow you, that's a pretty good number. Connect with them there. Or maybe instead of posting on social, send out newsletters every week for the next month. And they can literally be about anything. Just, hey, my name is Dr. J, and this week I went on a great walk with my dogs and it made me realize how grateful I am for this. It's whatever can help them connect with you or with your practice's brand. That's another big shortcoming, is that people overthink, what do I say? I need to deliver them something crazy valuable. Not always. If your practice has kind of that family vibe and people know you, your patients have known you for years, just talk. Just say, hey, this is what's new at Back to Health Chiropractic, so on and so forth. So we have some questions here. I'm not sure I know how to.
Hey, really quick, while you're looking at those questions, there's 2 points that I just want to emphasize for the audience that Lucas made. The first point that started early on was about really understanding where your referrals are coming from. You should be tracking your new patients, every single day, where they're coming from. And this can be done on an Excel spreadsheet, but your front SCA should be tracking that data for you, because if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. The second thing that I want to emphasize that Lucas said is, like, now is the time to work on your business. Not in your business, but on your business. Volume is lower today than it was obviously a few weeks ago. We have the great opportunity to do things in our business that we normally wouldn't have time to do because we're in the whirlwind. So take these steps, make sure you implement them so that you can be successful coming out of this crisis. So I just wanted to emphasize, work on the business, not just in the business.
Yes, that's great. And we actually have some really, really good questions here. So the first one, Todd, we hope you found the scoring system thing. Dr. Jim Sheehan has a great question. Google reviews aren't being posted right now. You are correct. They're not being posted. That doesn't mean they don't factor into your SEO algorithm. And they will all be posted as soon as Google sent out this notice, you may have gotten in your email, or it was a notification in your Google My Business page itself, saying that due to the COVID short staffing, they're not processing the reviews. They just have to make sure that the reviews are, if they're appealed, that they're able to take them down in time. So they just opted to not even have that on at all. But that doesn't mean that they're not being counted. And that also doesn't mean that when they are approved, the timeline will still be true and will still be accurate. So it's not like, let's say they're approved on May 1st. The reviews are not all going to say May 1st, or they're not all just going to be erased during this kind of time period. They're still going, they're still being submitted, and then Google will just approve all of them on the back end. But that's a great question, and it shows you're actually on top of this, and I can definitely appreciate that, because I just had the same conversation from our doctor who has the most reviews, Dr. Alan Huffman, and this guy's a true rock star. I mean, he has, I don't know, 800 5-star reviews or something like that. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, his practice gets hundreds of Google patients. So definitely learn from his example. One question that actually our engineer here asked, because we talk a lot about this, is how do we calculate ROI? That's one of the most common questions that we get. And it depends. It depends on what avenues you're taking. We'll talk about ads first, because that's where you can really calculate how much you're spending, right? And we'll start with that. Actually, it's important for you to differentiate between return on ad spend and return on investment overall, right? Because your investment overall includes your overhead, the hourly salary, or the hourly rate, or the salary of the person who's doing this, or even your own. How much is an hour of your time worth? So you have to factor all of that in. A good kind of benchmark is for you to have anywhere between 3 to 5x on your return on your ad spend. So let's say you spend $1,000 on, just saying, okay guys, we'll say $100. Some people are gonna stick a shock. $100 a month on your ads, and you're generating $500 from it. Typically, that puts you in the green. There's very few, I mean, you can always be screwing things up where you're not making money doing this, but typically that's really kind of the benchmark. If you're doing better than this, then you should really consider scaling that up big time, because again, you're making that return on the investment, if not more, because you're gaining SEO traction as well. So it feed on itself. But the ROI question is a very interesting one. And to Dr. J's point, you have to really implement processes to know where patients are coming from. How are they finding your practice? And if you don't have a CRM available, it's actually something we've been talking a lot about developing and implementing into our custom practice apps. So if that's something that you're interested in for your practice, definitely let us know. Our engineers can talk to you about that. But very, very important that you keep tabs on where your patients are coming from, even if you have to do it on an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, you have to know this data, because data that you measure, you manage, and data that you don't know about will put you out of business. So let's see, typical ROI for digital marketing. Again, we talked about return on ad spend. The return on your investment overall, again, you really have to calculate how much time you're putting in and what your overhead is. So if you have a full-time person that's coming in and just doing Facebook ads, for instance, you definitely have to calculate their share of the overall cost to run that practice, right? Because they're part of essentially the centralized staff of your practice. They're not really generating revenue for you by billing or collecting payment for treatments, etc. So that's one way to do it. But most importantly, you also, the second part, you know how much you spend, but the second part of that is you also have to know how much people are worth to you. And that is a big, big part of being successful with digital marketing. And a lot of this we'll cover in our Facebook ads masterclass. We'll do an entire one just dedicated on that to help you guys go from concepts all the way to implementation and new patient acquisition. What does that look like? But again, figure out where your patients are coming from, and then go back 2 years and figure out how much are these different sources worth to you on average. We know, for instance, that a case from like a personal injury case would typically be worth more money than someone who got injured at the gym and just wants to come in and pay with Blue Cross Blue Shield, or they want to pay cash, or whatever it may be. So again, you can cater your advertising for that, and also keep that in mind. Like, for instance, if you need to spend more money to convert a personal injury patient versus a different type of patient, that juice may be worth the squeeze as well. Okay,
We
that's
have
a
one from
great,
Dr. Nelson.
yeah, I was just going to answer that one. Because that is an excellent question. And there is a trick here. So first and foremost, a lot of people will inaccurately tell you, just have them do the review right then and there, just give them an iPad and they do the review. That is a huge mistake. Do not ever, ever, ever do this, okay? Because the review that goes on Google is not being tracked. Google doesn't track your username, right? I can go under lucasmrbraga at gmail.com. It's not tracking that, it's tracking my IP address. So if you give someone an iPad and 30 different people write your reviews on 30 different accounts, Google will flag you immediately as knowing that you're trying to play the system, and they don't play games with that at all. So you definitely don't want to do that. That's the first thing. And chances are you're not doing this, but just in case, I know it's kind of like the easy answer, like, oh, just give them the iPad and they do it right then and there. Don't do that. Make sure they're doing it from their device. Now, the fun part of this answer is that you have to gamify it. You have to find ways to engage your patients so that they would want to talk about your brand. The thing that we've done, just to get straight to the point, the thing that we've done that's the most successful is we added like a spinning wheel. I'm sure those things have a specific name, but we added a spinning wheel that has, I think, 10 different slots, and so 5 different prizes in general. And these are things that cost very little to nothing to you. It can be something like free stim, or it can even be something all the way up to a free visit, or if you have like massage services, if you have like biofreeze packets, you get creative with it. It can be, you can also, one thing that we've done is you can raffle out like a gift card. So say if you leave us a review, you're going to get one ticket, one entry ticket, so to speak. And every month we pick someone and we give them a $25 Starbucks gift card, or we buy their office coffee or something like that. Whatever can really get your patients engaged, and you know your patients better than we ever could. So what would resonate with them and cost you very little time, most importantly, something that you can pretty much automate. And again, the raffles are great, but the spinning wheel gets the most engagement from what we found. And actually we had one of our best review months right before this COVID thing started by implementing that. Okay, so we'll answer Joseph Michael's questions first. My social media posts seem to fall on deaf ears. Any advice? This is very, very, very common. The advice here is really that, again, it's not a battle, it's not a grind, you know, they're not out to get you and to not show your post to people. You just have to teach the software that your content is valuable to people, and it will show it to them. So there's a few ways you can do this. Specifically on social media, I wouldn't really expect a whole lot from Facebook in general if you're just posting and expecting people who have never interacted with your page to interact with you, because Facebook has really tightened up the organic visibility of posts, because they want you to buy ads with them, right? They want you to pay to push your content. But on Instagram is where you probably have the most success. And I highly, highly recommend that each one of you guys get on Instagram as soon as possible and start connecting with your community, even before thinking about content. So put out a couple of pieces of content, a couple of videos of treatments, etc. But what you should do, one thing that we always tell the other doctors that we work with, our clients, that they don't think about is go on Instagram and just go into the location tab and just do the search near me. It's a button, it will literally say search near me. Click that and then see the businesses that are listed there. Click the ones that are likely to have people who would want your services. So like a gym, for instance, a body shop, whatever it may be. Go there and see what people have checked in or have tagged themselves there, and then just start interacting with every single one of them. That is actually one of the main drivers of how we got traction on our social media platforms, was by doing that. Another thing that we can do, and we talked a lot about this in the last masterclass, actually the first masterclass, the growth guide, is using influencers. So get people who have large followings, bring them into your practice and show them what you're capable of, show them the relief that your services can provide, how amazing your treatments are, and get them to talk about you. And that's what we're talking about in terms of the wildfire expansion of your brand. Everyone who follows them will now start following you, and a lot of them will convert as patients as well. So all really, really great questions, guys. Thank you for that. And just a reminder, do this, really set aside some time to work through the homework. Every masterclass we do, we give you guys some things to work on. So make sure you do those. And we also have a lot of other resources for you guys. I've been mentioning these. They're all available. They're all free, and they're all centralized on our blog. So you can go to kaizennovate.com/blog-2, or you can just follow the link that we posted there, and you can find all of this. So I'm going to pass it back to Dr. J here, because again, we talked a lot about process implementation, and it's definitely something that's critical and something that he works with us, the team, a lot on. So Dr. J.
Yeah, before we do that, I want to make sure we address Dr. Nelson's question. So the top 5 directories: Vitals, Health Grades, Yelp. What are the other 2, Lucas?
Oh, yeah. So if I had to say top, I would say White Pages, Health Grades, Vitals. Yelp can be considered a Google My Business, but definitely on Yelp. And then also whatever is popular in your city. Here in DC, we have all kinds of like local magazines that have directories. I would look into those. Yellow Pages is still there, although White Pages really took over for that, at least in the digital realm. But you definitely want to make sure that you're listed at least in all of the medical ones. And off the top of my head now, obviously Health Grades, Vitals, WebMD is another one that will list providers as well. And even there, to whoever asked the question of, Dr. Sheehan asked the question about Google reviews not being posted. You can always ask for people to leave your reviews on these other websites as well, ranking you as a provider. Again, that probably won't have as much of an impact on SEO, but when people search for you, that goes a long way, right? If they're searching specifically for a chiropractor and you pop up on a medical directory website and you have positive reviews, that goes a very long way.
Cool. So guys, really quick, because we're out of time and we're actually a little bit over time, I have created an online course for everybody, and we've greatly discounted this because of what's going on in the world today, to the point of being able to work on your business, to give you guys some opportunity to do that. We're rolling it out in May, and we'll let everybody know about that. But it's called the Chiropractic Entrepreneur Framework, and it covers everything from establishing your vision of your organization, creating the culture that you want in your practice, understanding data and KPIs you measure to improve, making sure that you're super clean on process, and ultimately driving even more growth. So we'll send you guys the link so you can sign up and get notified when we actually release the course in May. And then the next slide we have is really related to our app that we build. We had a lot of our customers on this call today, which is super cool. Thank you, Dr. Nelson, others, and Dr. Sam for being on this call today. Dr. Misra, love having you guys on this call. But if you guys are interested as well in having a mobile app for your practice that's custom built for you, we're making that available as well. So I've enclosed the links in the chat section. Just check it out, copy and paste it, and we're happy to serve you any way we can. Lastly, I want to give a couple of thank yous. Thank you to Dr. Dorr, Dr. Askenas for your texts during the webinar. It's always nice, and it's very motivating to feel like you're helping inspire people. And I want to give the biggest shout out to my man, Lucas, who did a tremendous job today, really sharing this information. And this is like the tip of the iceberg. Like, there is so much more detail we can share with you, and we will share with you as you go through these webinar series with us. So thank you all for being here. Thank you again, Lucas, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. And if anyone wants to stay in the chat and has additional questions, just let us know. I saw Max raised his hand. So if you want to, okay, great.
I'll see you guys later. Bye.
You're good. You're good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Sam. So email us if you guys have any questions, and we'll go from there. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. And the next webinar is in 4 weeks exactly. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.